The massive council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone and gleaming metal. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved seating areas that rose like waves toward the crystal dome ceiling. The air hummed with translation, devices working overtime to convert dozens of languages into something resembling understanding. Jake Morrison sat in the small human section near the back. His simple black suit looked plain next to the elaborate robes and biomechanical armor worn by other delegates. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 8 years now. 8 long years of watching humanity get treated like children at the adults' table. The Zephyrian delegate was speaking again. His 4 arms gestured wildly as his translator crackled with static. The primitive humans suggest we change our military doctrine, he said with what passed for laughter among his species. Perhaps next they will teach us how to breathe properly. Several delegates made sounds that Jake had learned meant amusement. The crystalline Vorthak representative chimed in with harmonic tones that translated as mockery. Such a young species thinks it understands warfare. They have existed for mere thousands of years while we have fought battles for millions. Jake kept his face neutral. He had learned early that showing emotion only made things worse. The other delegates saw human expressions as proof of their primitive nature. Getting angry meant they were too emotional to be trusted with important decisions. Staying calm meant they were too simple to understand the complexity of galactic politics. Council Chairman Veltar raised one of his 6 hands for silence. The ancient being had served as chairman for over 2 centuries. His species lived for millennia and considered anything under 500 years old to be barely more than an infant. We will now vote on Resolution 7749 regarding military command. Structures in contested zones. Jake had spent weeks preparing his speech about this resolution. Earth's military strategists had identified serious flaws in the current system. Human forces had been fighting alongside Council troops for decades and had seen firsthand how the rigid command structure led to unnecessary casualties. But as he started to stand, Chairman Veltar's voice cut through the chamber. The floor recognizes established civilizations only for this matter, Veltar announced. Military doctrine shall be decided by those with proven expertise in galactic warfare. Jake slowly sat back down. This was the 3rd time this month that humanity had been excluded from important votes. The pattern was always the same. Any topic the Council considered truly important was reserved for the established civilizations, the 12 oldest species who had founded the Council eons ago. The hegemony representative spoke next. His people controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy's industrial capacity and never let anyone forget it. The current system has maintained peace for over 1,000 years, he declared. Why should we listen to a species that still fights? Wars on their single homeworld? More sounds of agreement echoed through the chamber. Jake pulled out his tablet and began typing quietly. The vote proceeded exactly as expected. The flawed military doctrine would remain in place. More soldiers would die because of preventable tactical errors. But the Council was satisfied that tradition had been preserved. After the vote, Jake tried once more. He approached the podium during the open comment period. Honorable delegates, he began, Earth would like to propose a simple amendment to the trade route security protocols. The human speaks again, interrupted the Vorthak representative. Her crystalline body rang with what Jake recognized as disdain. Do they not understand that security matters require wisdom that comes only with age? Chairman Veltar nodded slowly. The Council appreciates Earth's enthusiasm, however. This session is reserved for matters requiring experienced judgment. Perhaps the humans could submit their thoughts in writing for future consideration. Jake looked around the chamber. Some delegates weren't even paying attention anymore. Others watched him with the kind of patient condescension adults might show a child trying to join a serious conversation. A few seemed genuinely sorry for him, which somehow felt worse than outright mockery. I understand, Jake said quietly. He gathered his papers, closed his tablet, and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence that fell over the chamber. No one had expected him to give up so easily. As he reached the door, the Zephyrian delegate called out, "Perhaps next time the humans will learn to listen before speaking." The laughter that followed hurt more than Jake wanted to admit. Outside the chamber, Jake contacted Earth immediately. The quantum communication array connected him directly to President Lisa Carter's office in Washington. Her face appeared on his screen within seconds. "How did it go?" she asked, though his expression probably told her everything. "The same as always," Jake replied. "They voted without even hearing our proposals. The military doctrine issue passed exactly as we predicted it would. More people are going to die because they won't listen to basic tactical improvements." President Carter sighed. Behind her, Jake could see Admiral Ben Rogers and General Amy Stone entering the room. The president gestured for them to join the call. "Jake," Admiral Rogers said as his face came into view, "we've been monitoring the Council's military deployments through our intelligence networks. Their current doctrine has already led to 3 major defeats this year. Our analysis shows they could reduce casualties by 60% with simple communication protocol changes." "They don't want to hear it," Jake replied. "Today, they wouldn't even let me speak during the security discussion." "Apparently, trade route protection requires experienced judgment that humanity lacks." General Stone leaned forward. "What's our next move? Do we try again next session?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. 8 years of this same pattern. 8 years of being treated like children despite humanity's proven contributions to galactic peace and prosperity. 8 years of watching preventable disasters happen because the Council refused to listen to primitive human suggestions. "I don't think there's going to be a next session," Jake said finally. "Not for us, anyway." President Carter understood. Immediately, "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure. They've made it clear that they don't value our input. They see us as useful for manual labor and cannon fodder, but not for actual decision-making. Nothing we do or say is going to change minds that have been made up for centuries." Admiral Rogers nodded grimly. "Then we proceed with Option 7? "Option 7, President Carter confirmed. "Jake, pack your things, you're coming home." Within hours, the message went out through official channels. It was brief, polite, and final. "The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We thank you for the experience and wish you continued prosperity. No threats, no ultimatums. No dramatic speeches about injustice or disrespect, just a simple statement of fact. Humanity was leaving the table where they had never really been. Welcome anyway," the galaxy barely noticed at first. After all, humans were just one small species among hundreds. How much difference could their absence really make? Dr. Elena Martinez stood in the research lab one last time. The quantum computing array hummed quietly behind her as she checked the final data transfers. 3 years of work on Kepler 442b were coming to an end. 3 years of breakthrough discoveries. That would have changed how the galaxy processed information. Her research partner Zixanel approached slowly. The Altarian's blue skin had turned pale with distress. His large eyes showed the kind of panic that Elena had learned to recognize after months of working together. "You cannot leave now," Zixanel said in his musical voice. "The quantum consciousness interface is only days away from completion. This discovery will revolutionize how all species communicate across the galaxy." Elena handed him a datapad containing all of humanity's research contributions. The device held thousands of hours of work, calculations that had taken her team months to develop, and theoretical frameworks that could advance Altarian science by decades. "Everything we learned is yours now," she said gently. "The foundation is solid. Your people are brilliant scientists. You can finish this without us." Zixanel's tentacles trembled as he held the datapad. "But the neural mapping protocols require human brain patterns. Without your species' unique quantum resonance frequencies, the interface will never work properly." Elena smiled sadly. "Then maybe it wasn't meant to work the way we planned. Sometimes the best discoveries come from taking a different path." She picked up her personal belongings and walked toward the transport shuttle. Behind her, Zixanel called out desperately, but she didn't turn around. The hardest part of leaving wasn't abandoning the research. It was disappointing a friend who still believed in cooperation between species. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. On the mining station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Captain Rick Santos finished loading the last shipment of rare Earth elements. The Vorthic Consortium manager waited nervously as Rick's crew sealed the cargo holds. "The payment crystals are ready," the manager chimed in harmonic tones. "Your efficiency ratings remain the highest in this sector. The consortium wishes to offer a substantial bonus for continued service." Rick shook his head. "Keep your payment. Consider it a farewell gift." The crystalline being's harmonics shifted to confusion. "Farewell, but the next shipment of thorium crystals arrives in 6 days. Your crew is scheduled to transport them to the processing facility on Kepler 186F. Find someone else," Rick said simply. "We're going home." He handed over the shipping manifests and operational protocols his crew had developed over 2 years of service. The documents contained efficiency improvements that had increased the station's output by 40%. Routes through asteroid fields that saved weeks of travel time. Safety procedures that had prevented dozens of accidents. The Vortec manager's crystalline structure flickered with distress. "These protocols are extremely valuable. You cannot simply give them away." "We're not giving them away," Rick replied as he walked toward his ship. "We're leaving them behind." "There's a difference." On the diplomatic station near the Galactic Core, Ambassador Jake Morrison was packing his office. 8 years of accumulated reports, cultural studies, and diplomatic analyses filled dozens of storage containers. His aide, a young human named Peter Walsh, looked overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. "Sir, what should we do with the mediation files?" Peter asked. "There are ongoing disputes between 12 different species pairs. Some of these negotiations have been running for months." Jake paused over a particular file. "The Meridian Alliance and the Outer Colonies had been fighting over mining rights for 8 months. Jake's team had developed a compromise solution that both sides were close to accepting. Walking away now would probably mean the dispute would escalate into armed conflict. "Send copies to both parties," Jake decided. "Mark them as unofficial suggestions from a departing delegation. They can use the ideas or ignore them. It's their choice now." Peter's face showed concern. "But sir, without human mediators to guide the implementation, they might misinterpret the territorial boundaries we mapped out." "Then they'll have to figure it out themselves," Jake replied. "We won't be there to hold their hands anymore." The evacuation was happening everywhere at once. Human colonies that had served as neutral meeting grounds for alien diplomats began shutting down their facilities. Trade posts that had become essential stops along major shipping routes started refusing new contracts. Medical stations where human doctors had been treating injuries that other species couldn't heal sent their final patients home. Dr. Sarah Kim was finishing her last surgery on the medical station orbiting Tau Ceti. The patient was a hegemony officer whose species couldn't process certain types of radiation damage. Human medical techniques were the only known treatment for his condition. "The cellular regeneration is complete," she told the officer's aide. "He should make a full recovery within 2 weeks. I've left detailed follow-up instructions with your medical staff." The aide looked confused. "Dr. Kim, we have 17 more officers arriving tomorrow with similar injuries. The mining accident on Tau Ceti Prime affected nearly 100 of our people." "I'm sorry," Sarah said as she cleaned her instruments for the last time. "You'll need to find another treatment option. I've shared all of our research data with your medical corps. They're capable doctors. They'll find a way." But both Sarah and the aide knew that wasn't true. The hegemony's medical knowledge was advanced in many areas, but radiation damage from quantum mining accidents was something only humans had learned to treat effectively. The economic effects started small. A few trade routes experienced minor delays when human cargo ships failed to show up for scheduled runs. Some manufacturing plants had to slow production when human maintained Equipment needed repairs that local technicians couldn't perform. The merchant guild's daily efficiency reports began showing tiny red marks. Nothing dramatic at first. A 2% decrease in shipping speed along the Centauri corridor. A 4% increase in equipment failures at the Vega processing plants. Minor fluctuations that could be explained by normal market variations, but the independent colonies in the Outer Rim noticed immediately. These were small settlements of various species who had never been accepted into the main council. They survived on the edges of civilized space by trading with each other and occasionally with the major powers. For years, human freighter captains had been quietly supplying these colonies with essential goods. Medical supplies that kept plagues from wiping out entire populations. Food shipments that prevented famines during harsh seasons. Defensive equipment that helped them survive pirate raids. The colonies hadn't realized how much they depended on human generosity until the supply ships stopped coming. Commander Lisa Park received the first distress call while her patrol ship was passing through the Kepler 438 system. The signal came from New Haven, a mixed-species colony of about 50,000 people. Their main food processing plant had broken down 3 weeks ago, and they were facing starvation. Commander Park, the colony administrator's voice crackled through the communications array. We know humanity has withdrawn from council affairs, but this is a humanitarian crisis. We have children here who will die without assistance. Lisa felt the familiar pull of duty that every human officer knew. The desire to help was built into their training and their culture. But her orders were clear. Humanity was no longer responsible for maintaining stability in council space. New Haven Colony, she replied carefully. I'm authorized to offer you one-time humanitarian assistance. But after that, you'll need to find other sources of support. She authorized the transfer of emergency food supplies and medical equipment. Enough to keep the colony alive for another month. But she also transmitted something else, an invitation. New Haven, if your people are interested in relocating, the Terran Federation is establishing protected zones for independent colonies. We can't support you where you are, but we can offer you a new home where you'll be welcome. The response came immediately. Commander, we accept. When can you arrange transport? Similar conversations were happening throughout the Outer Rim. Small colonies that had survived on human charity were being offered a choice. Stay and struggle alone or come with humanity to a new future. One by one, they chose to leave with the humans. The quiet exodus was becoming something larger. Counselor Tusara of the Meridian Alliance stared at the report on her desk with growing concern. The numbers were undeniable, even though her fellow counselors had been dismissing them for weeks. Trade efficiency across 17 major shipping routes had dropped by 23% since the human withdrawal. 6 months ago, she touched the communication panel with one of her 4 delicate fingers. Schedule an emergency meeting with the Economic Council, she said to her aide. Priority. Level 7. The aide's voice crackled back through the speaker. Counselor, the Economic Council is already in session discussing the mining consortium reports. They requested your presence immediately. Tisara gathered her files and hurried through the corridors of the council headquarters. The building felt different now, quieter somehow. She realized that the constant hum of human translation devices was gone. The soft murmur of human voices discussing logistics and offering helpful suggestions had vanished. She hadn't noticed how much background noise humanity had provided until it disappeared. The Economic Council chamber was in chaos when she arrived. Representatives from dozens of species argued loudly while holographic displays showed declining productivity charts. The Vorthak representative's crystalline body was flashing angry red colors while the Zephyrian delegate gestured wildly with all 4 arms. The thorium extraction on Proxima Centauri has decreased by 40%, the Vorthak was saying in harmonic tones that translated as severe distress. The human cargo crews knew how to navigate the asteroid fields efficiently. Our pilots require twice as long to complete the same routes. The hegemony representative stood up from his massive chair. This is temporary. Our species adapted to challenges for millions of years before humans ever existed. We will compensate for their absence quickly. But the charts on the wall told a different story. Mining accidents had tripled without human safety protocols. Equipment failures were happening daily at facilities that had run smoothly for years under human maintenance. Transport costs had increased dramatically as alien crews struggled with routes that human pilots had made look effortless. Tassara activated her personal communicator and accessed her private files. The data she had been collecting painted an even more disturbing picture. The humans hadn't just been participants in the galactic economy. They had been the invisible foundation that held much of it together. Human mediators had been quietly resolving trade disputes before they escalated into economic wars. Human engineers had been maintaining critical infrastructure that other species had taken for granted. Human logistical experts had been optimizing supply chains that now operated at barely 60% efficiency. We need to contact Earth immediately, Tassara announced to the chamber. Request that they return to their previous roles until we can develop alternative solutions. The Zephyrian delegate laughed harshly. The primitive humans will be begging to return within a year. They need galactic trade more than we need them. Their single planet cannot sustain their population without imported resources. But intelligence reports suggested otherwise. Humanity had been preparing for self-sufficiency long before their dramatic exit. Their asteroid mining operations had expanded dramatically in recent years. Their agricultural technology had advanced to the point where they could feed twice their current population using only Earth-based resources. Commander Val Green was patrolling the edge of Council space when her ship's sensors detected a distress signal. The transmission came from a hegemony science vessel under attack by 3 pirate ships. Val's tactical display showed that the science vessel's shields were failing and their weapons were offline. Her communications officer looked at her expectantly. Commander, should we respond? Val studied the tactical situation. Her ship could easily drive off the pirates and save the hegemony crew. 6 months ago, that would have been automatic. Human patrol ships had protected Council vessels as a matter of routine cooperation. Log the incident and transmit the coordinates to Council defense forces, Val ordered. Continue on our patrol route. Her bridge crew exchanged glances but followed orders. Through the view screen, they watched the pirate ships destroy the hegemony vessel. 43 alien scientists died while a human patrol ship capable of saving them flew past. Commander, her tactical officer said quietly, the nearest Council patrol is 6 hours away. Those people didn't have to die. Val felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. No, they didn't have to die, but we're not part of their defense network anymore. They made that clear when they decided our contributions weren't valuable enough to deserve a voice in their decisions. The officer nodded, but Val could see the conflict in his eyes. Helping people in danger was built into human nature. Walking away from those who needed assistance felt wrong on a fundamental level. Similar incidents were happening throughout the galaxy. Human patrol ships followed their new orders to protect only Terran interests. Pirates grew bolder as they realized human vessels would no longer intervene in attacks on Council ships. Trade routes that had been safe for decades became dangerous as word spread that human protection was gone on Earth. President Lisa Carter met with her full cabinet. In the Situation Room, intelligence reports covered the table like fallen leaves. Each document told the same story. The galaxy was becoming less stable without human involvement. Admiral Ben Rogers pointed to a sector map dotted with red warning markers. Piracy incidents have increased by 300% in the Outer Rim territories. The Council's response time is too slow to maintain security on the trade routes. General Amy Stone activated a holographic display showing industrial output across Council space. Manufacturing efficiency continues to decline. The Vorthic Consortium has requested emergency assistance 3 times this month. Their quantum processing plants keep failing without human maintenance crews. What about the independent colonies? President Carter asked. 47 colonies have requested relocation to human-protected space, Admiral Rogers replied. We've successfully evacuated 31 so far. The remaining 16 are in contested areas where we can't safely extract them. Dr. Elena Martinez joined the meeting via secure communication from the Luna Research Facility. Her face appeared on the main screen as she spoke from her new laboratory. The quantum communication breakthrough is complete. We can now transmit instantaneous messages across the galaxy without relying on Council relay stations. President Carter leaned forward. Range and capacity? Unlimited range and enough bandwidth to coordinate our entire defense network in real time. We're completely independent from Council infrastructure now. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity had achieved technological independence just as the galaxy was learning how much they needed human expertise. Recommendations? President Carter asked her advisors. General Stone spoke first. Maintain current isolation protocols. Let the Council deal with the consequences of their decisions. Eventually they'll realize they need us more than we need them. Admiral Rogers disagreed. We're watching civilizations collapse because of preventable problems. Maybe it's time to consider limited humanitarian assistance. President Carter studied the reports one more time. We maintain isolation, she decided. But we also prepare for the possibility that they might ask for help eventually. When that happens, it will be on our terms. The galaxy continued its slow slide toward chaos while humanity watched from the sidelines they had been forced to occupy. The explosion lit up the dark side of Kepler 442 like a second sun. The Omega Nebula Mining Consortium's primary extraction platform had been the largest thorium processing facility in Council space. Now it was an expanding cloud of superheated gas and twisted metal drifting through the asteroid field. Station Manager Crystal watched the disaster unfold through the viewports of the emergency shelter. His 6 eyes tracked debris as it tumbled past in slow motion. Behind him, other survivors sat in stunned silence. 3,000 workers had been on the platform when the quantum extraction system overloaded. How long until the repair teams arrive? Asked Chief Engineer Vashana, her crystalline voice cracking with stress. Crystal checked his communication panel. The Council has dispatched their best engineering corps. Estimated arrival time is 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Vashana's harmonic tones shifted to panic. The thorium shortage will crash the entire sector's economy in 6 weeks. Half the planets in this system depend on those shipments for their power grids. Crystal knew she was right. The platform had produced 40% of the sector's thorium supply. Without it, dozens of worlds would face energy shortages within a month. Industrial production would grind to a halt. Billions of people would be affected. What about the human engineers? Asked a junior technician. They maintained the system for 3 years. They would know how to fix it quickly. The shelter fell silent. Everyone remembered the human maintenance crews who had kept the extraction systems running smoothly. Chief Engineer David Park and his team had prevented dozens of smaller failures that could have led to exactly this kind of disaster. They had tried to warn consortium management about stress fractures in the quantum containment field, but their concerns had been dismissed as typical human overcaution. The humans are gone, Crystal said quietly. We told them their services were no longer required. Now we deal with the consequences ourselves. The disaster on Kepler 442b was just the beginning. On the far side of Council space, the Zephyrian Empire faced its own crisis. Their automated defense grid had protected the Empire's borders for over 2 centuries without a single failure. The system was considered the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. General Zithara stood in the command center watching enemy ships pour through the breached perimeter. The defense grid's targeting computers had failed to adapt to new hegemony attack patterns. What should have been a minor border skirmish was turning into the Empire's first military defeat in 300 years. Status report, Zithara demanded from his tactical officer. The grid's adaptive algorithms have stopped responding. The system cannot process new threat data without manual updates to the core programming. Zithara's forearms trembled with frustration. Then update the programming. Sir, the update protocols were designed by human programmers. Our engineers understand how to operate the system, but not how to modify its core functions. The humans took those specifications with them when they left. The truth hit Zithara like a physical blow. The Zephyrian Empire's most advanced defense system had been dependent on human expertise for routine maintenance. Without regular updates from Terran specialists, the grid was becoming obsolete as enemy tactics evolved. Contact Earth immediately, Zithara ordered. Offer whatever payment they require for emergency technical assistance. His communications officer tried for 3 hours to establish contact with Terran authorities. The response finally came through automated channels. The Terran Federation no longer provides technical support to Council member species. Please direct all inquiries to Council Technical Services. But Council Technical Services had no one qualified to work on Zephyrian defense systems. The humans who understood the technology were gone, and they had taken their knowledge with them. Council Chairman Veltar called an emergency session as reports of failures cascaded in from across the galaxy. The massive chamber that had once buzzed with confident voices now echoed with panic and fusion. Representatives who had spent centuries mocking human contributions were beginning to understand what they had lost. The Vorthic delegate's crystalline body flickered with distress patterns as she addressed the assembly. Our industrial output has decreased by 60% since the human departure. Critical systems that operated flawlessly for decades are failing daily. We lack the technical expertise to maintain equipment that human engineers designed and serviced. Similar reports came from every sector. The Meridian Alliance faced food shortages as agricultural processing plants broke down without human maintenance crews. The Outer Colony Federation struggled with communication blackouts as relay stations failed. Trade routes that had operated efficiently for centuries were plagued by delays and accidents. Councillor Tisara stood to address the assembly. In her hands she held a datapad containing information that would shock even the most arrogant delegates. I have conducted a comprehensive analysis of human contributions to galactic civilization over the past 50 years, she announced. The results are disturbing. She activated the chamber's main display screen. Charts and graphs showed the intricate web of dependencies that had developed around human expertise. Humans were not merely participants in our economy, she continued. They were the foundation that supported much of our technological and industrial infrastructure. The data was overwhelming. Human engineers had designed or maintained critical systems on over 10,000 installations across Council space. Human mediators had prevented hundreds of conflicts from escalating into wars. Human logistical experts had optimized supply chains that now operated at barely half their previous efficiency. Furthermore, Tisara added, our intelligence services report that humanity achieved complete economic and technological independence months before their departure. They do not need our resources or our trade partnerships. We need theirs. The chamber erupted in arguments and recriminations. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive now faced the reality that their own civilizations were struggling without human support. The cosmic joke was too bitter to appreciate. The galaxy's most advanced species had been quietly dependent on the people they considered least qualified to participate in important decisions. Chairman Veltar called for order, but his authority carried less weight than it had a year ago. Several member species were questioning the Council's leadership as their economies collapsed and their military defenses failed. Dr. Elena Martinez was working in her laboratory on Luna when the priority communication came through. Her former research partner Zixanel appeared on her screen, his blue skin pale with desperation. Elena, please, Zixanel said without preamble. My people are dying. The quantum consciousness interface we developed together was our only hope for communicating with the plague organisms that are destroying our homeworld. Without human neural patterns to complete the interface, we cannot implement the solution. Elena felt her heart break watching her friend's anguish. The Altarians were facing extinction because they couldn't complete research that she had helped design. Zixanel, I'm sorry. I cannot provide official assistance without authorization from my government. Then get authorization, Zixanel pleaded. 60 billion Altarians will die if we cannot stop this plague within the next month. You know the solution. You helped create it. Elena promised to forward his request through proper channels, but they both knew the process would take longer than the Altarians had. The plague would consume their civilization while bureaucrats debated policy. Similar requests were flooding human communication networks. Desperate pleas for help from species that had spent decades dismissing human capabilities. The galaxy was learning too late that quiet competence was more valuable than loud arrogance. On Earth, President Carter reviewed the growing list of emergency requests. The choice was becoming clear: watch former allies suffer from preventable disasters or find a way to help that didn't compromise humanity's newfound independence. 2 years had passed since humanity's quiet departure, and the galaxy was burning. Not with the fire of war, though conflicts raged across dozens of systems. It burned with the slow collapse of civilizations that had grown dependent on human expertise without ever acknowledging that dependence. The Outer Rim War had started as a minor dispute over mining rights. Without human mediators to propose compromise solutions, the conflict had escalated into a sector-wide catastrophe. Refugee ships fled from system to system as worlds that had known peace for centuries tore themselves apart over resources that could have been shared. Dr. Elena Martinez stood before the Luna Research Facility's main communication array as the priority message came through. Her former colleague Zixanel appeared on the screen, but his appearance shocked her. The once proud Altarian scientist looked decades older than his species normally aged. His blue skin had faded to a sickly gray, and his large eyes showed the hollow desperation of someone watching his people die. "Elena," Zixanel said, his musical voice barely above a whisper, "we have less than 3 days before the plague organisms reach our capital city. 40 billion people will be dead within a week. I am begging you to help us complete the quantum consciousness interface." Elena's hands trembled as she touched the communication controls. Behind Zixanel, she could see the emergency shelter where Altarian leaders were making final preparations for the evacuation of their homeworld. A civilization that had contributed to galactic science for over 1 million years was about to become extinct because they couldn't implement technology that she had helped design. "Zixanel, my government's position hasn't changed. We cannot provide technical assistance to council member species without official diplomatic recognition of our sovereignty and equal status." "Then we die with our pride intact," Zixanel replied bitterly. "Our civilization ends because we were too arrogant to treat your people as equals when it mattered." The communication ended, and Elena sat alone in her laboratory surrounded by the quantum research that could save an entire species. The moral weight of watching friends die from preventable causes was crushing her spirit, but she understood the larger principle at stake. Humanity had tried for decades to help while being treated as inferior. Now help would only come with respect. On Earth, President Lisa Carter reviewed the situation reports that covered her desk like a paper avalanche. The galaxy was experiencing the worst crisis in recorded history, and every day brought new requests for human assistance. Admiral Ben Rogers and General Amy Stone sat across from her, their faces showing the strain of watching preventable disasters unfold. "The Zephyrian Empire is offering us 3 star systems and permanent seats on their ruling council in exchange for technical support to repair their defense grid," Admiral Rogers reported. "The Vorthic Consortium is proposing a complete technology sharing agreement. Even the hegemony has hinted at accepting human leadership in their industrial sector." General Stone activated a holographic display showing refugee movements across council space. 47 independent colonies have successfully relocated to human-protected territories. Another 38 are requesting evacuation. "We're becoming the primary safe haven for species that the Council abandoned." President Carter studied the data with mixed emotions. Human space was thriving while the rest of the galaxy collapsed. The independent colonies that had joined them were contributing their own expertise and resources. creating a new alliance based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical dominance. "What's the status of our defensive capabilities?" she asked. "Complete. Superiority in our operational area," General Stone replied. "The colonies that joined us brought military technologies that complement our own systems perfectly. We could defend our territory against the entire Council fleet if necessary." A priority alert flashed on the main screen. Admiral Rogers activated. The communication channel and the face of Captain Rick Santos appeared. He was transmitting from the edge of human space where his patrol fleet maintained the border with Council territory. "Madam President," Rick said, his voice tight with urgency. "I'm receiving a transmission from a joint delegation of Council species. They're requesting permission to enter human space for what they call critical diplomatic discussions. The delegation includes representatives from 12 major civilizations." President Carter felt the moment's historical weight settling on her shoulders. This was the moment they had been preparing for since the withdrawal began. The galaxy's most powerful species were coming to ask for help from the people they had dismissed as primitive. Grant them safe passage to Luna, she decided. Schedule a meeting for tomorrow in the new council chambers. The rebuilt council chambers on Luna were smaller than the massive structure that had housed the Galactic Council, but they were designed with a fundamental difference. Every seat was identical, no elevated platforms for senior species. No special sections for established civilizations. Each delegation sat as equals around a circular arrangement that put no one at the head of the table. Jake Morrison took his position as Earth's ambassador, but this time the dynamics were completely different. The alien delegates who had once laughed at human suggestions now waited quietly for permission to speak. The species that had excluded humanity from important votes were requesting audience with the people they had rejected. Council Chairman Veltar looked ancient and defeated as he spoke first. "Ambassador Morrison, the Galactic Council formally acknowledges that our treatment of humanity was both unjust and catastrophically short-sighted. We request the assistance of the Terran Federation in stabilizing the current crisis." Jake let the words hang in the chamber's silence for several moments. Around the circular table, representatives of species that had controlled the galaxy for millennia waited for humanity's response. The Zephyrian delegate who had once mocked human military doctrine sat with 4 arms folded in submission. The Vorthic representative's crystalline body showed muted colors of humility rather than the bright arrogance of their previous encounters. "Chairman Veltar," Jake replied carefully, "humanity appreciates your acknowledgement of past injustices. However, the Terran Federation is no longer interested in participating in the existing council structure. That system has proven fundamentally flawed." Panic flickered across several alien faces. They had come expecting to negotiate terms for human assistance within the framework of their traditional power structure. The possibility that humanity might reject that framework entirely had apparently not occurred to them. "We propose instead a new alliance," Jake continued. "The Cooperative Federation, based on principles of genuine equality and mutual respect. Species join as partners, not as subordinates or superiors. Every member has equal voice in decisions that affect them. Contributions are valued regardless of the contributor's age or perceived sophistication." He gestured to the gallery where representatives from the independent colonies sat watching. "These species have already discovered the benefits of cooperation over domination. Their civilizations are thriving while yours collapse. They will form the founding membership of our new alliance." The Altarian delegate raised a tentacle weakly. "Ambassador Morrison, my people are dying from the plague crisis. Will you help us if we join this new alliance?" Jake's expression softened. "Dr. Martinez is already preparing the technical assistance your people need. The quantum consciousness interface will be operational within 72 hours. Your civilization will survive, but as partners in a new future rather than subjects." Begging for charity. One by one, the council delegates requested admission to humanity's new order. Some, like the Altarians and Meridians, were welcomed immediately as full partners. Others, particularly the hegemony worlds and Zephyrian Empire, were offered associate membership pending. Demonstration of genuine commitment to cooperative principles. The galaxy had learned the hardest lesson possible, the most powerful response. To disrespect wasn't anger or revenge, but simply walking away and letting others discover what they had lost. Now they understood that quiet competence was worth more than loud arrogance, and that treating people as equals wasn't just morally right, but practically essential. Jake's final words echoed through the chamber and across the galaxy. We never wanted to rule you, we only wanted to help. When you made it clear our help wasn't welcome, we quietly left. Now you understand what you dismissed. The door remains open, but this time we all enter as partners or not at all. The age of human subservience was over. The age of genuine galactic cooperation had finally begun.